Montgomery County Municipal Utility District number 60 meeting. Brian, this goes back to you or it goes in the folder? Okay. Begin with our roll call. Director Betty Doherty.
Here.
Director Donna McAleer.
Here.
Director Bob Lux is here. Director Dale Walker. Yeah. Very good. And we have a vacancy.
And I have to leave at 12:45 to make a appointment, doctor's appointment.
Very good. We'll do what we can to get things moving along. We'll begin with our invocation and pledges of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, and our nation. Help us to work diligently, always for the common good and in the best interest of those we have been elected to represent. Guide us to be insightful and prudent in our intentions, visions, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance, to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue and discussion with understanding, wisdom, and humility. Amen. Amen. If you wish, prior to reciting the pledges of allegiance, take an additional moment of silent prayer or reflection in the manner of your preference. Thank you. Okay, the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge to the Texas flag.
Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. Okay. That brings us to agenda item number 3. Do we have any comments from the public today? Shelley, anybody? Nobody? No comments from the public. Okay, consider an act on requests for adjustments to or relief from the specific charges imposed by the district. Mr. Mooney?
I do have one for you today. The single family residence, it's an account number 68-5170-04, the sprinkler issue. A resident is relatively new to the Woodland, new to the house, doesn't understand the sprinkler and pool system. Did not realize he had an irrigation leak until he got a bill. The gallons in question is an average is 14,000 gallons a month. It's a large lot. The gallons in question is 295,000. The adjustment would be for 281,000 gallons or a credit of $1,748.55 to his account. He does meet the requirements. He has the repair bills and he is signed up for the Wise Guys, so we are recommending approval.
We have a motion to approve.
I have a motion. I approve.
You motion approved.
Mhm.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Is there?
He signed up for Water Smart, right?
He signed up for Water Smart and he signed up for the Wise Guy irrigation.
And he didn't get any warning that,
He didn't because he was not signed.
oh, he signed up after,
After the fact.
after. Okay,
We
that's
make everybody that is either not signed up, that requests an adjustment, we guide them to sign up. And
Was this due to some of the freezes we had?
no, this has been going on for more than that. This is his highest bill. His bill just kept going up and up and up.
So he's got a serious
He
leak.
didn't know what was.
Blaming it on us, wasn't he?
Well, he wasn't blaming it on us. He just was asking for some help. Why does the bill keep going up? And we finally figured it out for him. He has two backflow preventers. One went to his sprinkler system, but one was hidden under some fake landscaping that went to his sprinkler system. He did not know it was there. We didn't know.
Mhm.
But we did find it.
Just for confirmation, excuse me, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, based on last month's, issue, I've told lots of people, did you know you're supposed to call us first?
Yeah,
And they go, am I? I said, "It might avoid a big plumbing bill."
Yeah.
So,
He did call after he figured out.
Mhm.
Where.
How long has he been a resident? Do we know?
Moved in last summer.
So 9 months approximately. And just to confirm what I believe you earlier said, it's in full compliance with the policy. Okay.
Those leaky policy.
Did you train him on how to drain it in November?
Yeah, we guided him to our website and he did follow the instructions. And we have a little video demonstration on how to do that.
How to drain it so it doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
Okay.
you're asking a lot, Dave.
Yeah.
One time I got a picture, it shows the one that blew out and it's ice. It's about 6 inches of ice. December of 22. Did I get that right?
Mhm.
It literally just coated the whole side of the house.
Oh, so can I call the vote? Can I move that we call the vote? Do we have to vote on it?
You can call the question.
Call the
You so-
question,
so-
yeah.
So choose. So that would end the discussion. All in favor of passing the motion as presented in second, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Thank you. This is a anecdotal comment. General Manager Peterson and Assistant General Manager Mooney, do you think that the policy may need some revision?
We're in the process of
Speak.
If memory serves me correctly, you get one adjustment. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
Unexplained.
One unexplained adjustment.
You want unexplained usage lifetime.
Hmm.
Now, if you have a catastrophic failure, we'll work with you. We have some repeat offenders that try this every year. We've cut them. Most of these people are pretty cognizant of what's going on. Once they get in tune with their irrigation system or their automatic pool fill, they know what to look.
Yeah, with the new technology that we have with the AMIs, we have the tools at our fingertips to be able to look through this better than we used to with the old policy. So we'd like to bring that policy up to kind of in line with the technology that we have to be able to identify leaks and such. So
I know that at the Public Education Committee meeting, John shared with us, is John here today? No. That we had a big surge, but like about 30% of the residents came on and signed right up and then it's kind of trickled in since then.
it's going back up this year.
It's going back up.
You'll hear in a little bit. He'll present on
Okay.
that.
I mean, maybe we just have to hit that a little harder.
Mhm.
Continue to. Thank you. Don't want to get tied up in that. It's a little troubling. Very good. Consent agenda.
Maybe we accept the consent agenda.
There were some adjustments to the minutes, I believe, in a revised document.
Mhm.
I talked to Shelley yesterday about something I thought was omitted. And that was the part about where I'd asked for a kind of a voice vote on what to do with the excess funds.
Oh, yeah.
And that had been omitted, and I just thought that it was important enough to have memorialized that it was a vote of the MUD 60, not just an individual vote of the trustee.
They're questioning that in 47, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we do need to get that in,
Yeah.
there, I think.
So if we have a motion and do we have a second? Second, Director Walker. Further discussion on that matter? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Through agenda item now. Agenda item 9, there's been no change. Nobody's come forward with a candidate. We can defer this,
Table it. I move we
table to the next meeting. Okay. How about, we are now to agenda item number 10. Is that Mr. Meeks in the corner there, back from his spring break? Okay, is there anybody that has any questions for Mr. Meeks through pages 14 through 35? And on the budgets, we're good on the revenue against the expenses. Good news from Bear Branch. No questions?
I was disappointed in the turnout for the announcement. I mean, I was.
I think it was a kind of invitation only though, wasn't
What was it?
But
it?
the Bear Branch,
At the Bear Branch
Oh.
Dam,
Dan Crenshaw.
It was limited.
because of the where it is and the parking.
Well, from a MUD perspective, it was limited to the directors that were involved. And so all of y'all were invited, and then there was parking restrictions.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we kind of gathered up and carpooled.
Yeah, I had to babysit, so.
Okay. So that brings us to agenda item number 11, Mr. Schindewolf. Good afternoon. Nice to see you.
Copy of that. You have yours. Okay, a lot of extras. And then. Better.
Thank you.
Have a copy of our 10-year project plan. The large binder.
You do kill the trees, don't
Mhm. Many.
I
We have a
prefer that,
forest. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It is also in this.
And it is, I put it with my collection.
Those other things, so.
That's a good one. Keep it with your collection. Keep your library stocked.
I do have.
Okay.
I don't know if you're gonna know, but, we'll be talking about this. For the women, Texas Women's Justice.
Trying to get my head out of the picture.
All righty, well, for those of y'all who do not know me, I'm Aaron Schindewolf. I'm a project manager with the San Snow River Authority called the Technical Services Department. Dan here is the manager of the Technical Services Department. But every year as part of our budget process, we come back to the BUDS and then of course also the trustees with our updated 10-year project plan. These are the large projects that the Woodlands Division will be undergoing in the next 10 years. As we go on the 10 years, if projects get changed, if new ones get added, if the old ones get completed, we update this project plan, and each year we bring it to y'all to present and inform you on what our plans are. 10-year projects are all in that big binder, very descriptive about each project, the budgets, the schedule, all that information, even some photos and maps to help you understand what the project's about. But this is more of a high-level overview of the projects that are either currently underway and will be continuing into FY25, or projects that will be starting in FY25. Also, we talked about just a brief overview of the Woodlands Division, expected level of service, how we come about our project plan projects. And then, like I said, we'll be talking about the projects that are ongoing or about to start. And then a summary of the budgets, both for those projects and the overall 10-year project plan. So get started. We're a wholesale water and wastewater provider. And we have all the facilities that go along with that and certain mains, water mains, sewer trunk lines, force mains, manholes, etc. And as you can see, overall in our system, we have over 8,000 assets. Those are larger components of the system, whether it be, like I said, manholes, valves, pumps, blowers, lines, etc. On top of that, you have all those replaceable components, especially electrical ones and SCADA related that are smaller value. And, those are thousands of more components, but the larger main system, pumps, motors, etc., we have over 8,000 of those for a total replacement value of roughly $2 billion. As far as the expected level of service is concerned in the systems, what we've understood to be the expectation in the past and what we understand to be the expectation in the present and future is y'all want a system where it's out of sight, out of mind. You don't want any disruptions, and if they happen, they're very limited and they're very short term. One other thing to note is we've only had one boil water notice in the past 50 years. And that was actually on the sample site side and the residents that we used. So it wasn't in the system itself, it was in their plumbing that caused that one boil water notice. But then going into it, how are the projects determined? How do we come about all these things that go into that big binder? Well, first of all, we have a comprehensive asset management plan and system. See the copy of the cover of the asset management plan. And all that feeds into an asset management software and strategy. The software keeps track of all those assets, how likely are they to fail today and in the future, what the replacement values are. Also the consequence of those assets failing. If this water line breaks, is it serving a water burn or is it serving a hospital? How critical is it? And then as the year progresses, we do staff inspections or we have to do corrective maintenance. All that data is fed into that asset management software. We utilize that to see how critical our assets are to replace or to rehab. Also, upcoming regulatory changes that we're made aware of can add projects to our project plan if those were to occur. Also, in the past few years, we have done a variety of different studies utilizing this asset management strategy, but hiring consultants to assist us to prioritize and identify projects. And you can just see a sampling of the most recent ones, but these have led to about 95% of what you're seeing in the project plan, from the main wastewater conveyance and water reclamation facility to water wells, to water assets such as new elevated storage tanks, AC water line replacements, other gravity line sewer projects. And also at Plant 2, we have another facilities that we're planning on rehabilitating in the near future, since it will be keeping on in operation. But the main key large projects of the project plan, water line evaluation and renewal, that's sort of a program of multiple projects. But you also have the new elevated storage tank, the new water reclamation facility, replace wastewater facility number 1, and an optimization of the collection system leading to that new water reclamation facility to the north, which I'll be talking about a little bit more here in a second. So as I noted, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the projects that have either already started or about to start. First one I want to talk about is AC water line condition-based assessment. Now, that was one of the projects that the funding was approved with the excess funds. So what this will do is it'll look at all the asbestos cement lines in our system. It'll, there'll be data analysis of record drawings, record information, break history, things of that nature, but also going into the field and doing both what we call destructive, taking samples of the pipe, and non-destructive testing, such as inserting a sonic type device that can measure wall thickness, things of that nature, and getting a comprehensive assessment of all those water lines. So then we can prioritize the projects to replace them with the new schedules and cost estimates. And we're anticipating this being completed in July of 2025. But here's a map of all the AC water lines and the Woodlands. Yes, ma'am.
Are you saying that the testing will be completed by 2025?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Next project, this is one that was already in the project plan last year and it's continuing this year. Already underway, in the route study phase. But this is to essentially take these 5 lift stations with their own independent force mains and consolidate them into a single gravity line that will go to the new water reclamation facility. So what that means is we'll be taking all these lift stations out of service, abandoning them, also removing their force mains, which are 40, 50 years old as well and corroding, to consolidate everything into a gravity main, which takes little operation and maintenance costs, and conveying all that wastewater to the new water reclamation facility. As you can see, over a 35-year period from the recent study, we're looking at about $30 million worth of savings by not having to continuously renew those lift stations of force mains over that period of time. Also, by taking lift stations out of the neighborhood, you reduce potential noise and odor that you could have from those facilities. Elevated storage tank number 6, also on the previous project plan, also design is underway. River Authority is under variance from TCQ because we have, according to their regulations, not enough capacity of elevated storage. As the Woodlands continues to develop up to that 6th and final counting amount of SFDUEs, we need additional storage on top of that. So we're building this new elevated storage tank in the northwest side of the Woodlands on a site that SGRA already has owned for quite a few years. But another benefit is if you have another elevated storage tank in the system, you can take it out of service and have the assurance that if you have a fire nearby or overly high demand during the summertime, during a drought, that you are able to do so without being a detriment to the system by having this additional storage. South Shore Gravity Main Rehabilitation, another project that's been in the project plan previous years in the final design phase. This one is actually upstream of that optimization project. So you can see upstream of lift station 5. This addresses gravity mains that are very heavily corroded. You can see an example of the televised section of one of those sewer lines and how bad a condition it is in. But this will take and rehabilitate those lines you can see in orange and red and blue and yellow and green. About 6,700 linear feet of 42-inch and 36-inch ductile iron sewer line. Wastewater facility number 2, tertiary filter improvements, another project that's been in the project plan and final design phase. So a number of years ago, this is a 3-basin system, 3-filter system. We rehabbed one of the basins, switching from what we call a sand filter to a cloth filter system. By doing so, you triple the capacity of that filter. Right now, even with that one filter rehabbed, we still have the other 2 that are sand filter. It takes all 3 to meet our peak demand permit for flows. So by rehabbing and replacing the other 2 with cloth media, you triple the capacity of those, and you're able to then take in the future for any maintenance or operational needs, you take one of the basins down and not have to be concerned about not meeting that permit with those basins. So otherwise you may have to go around the basins and bypass that part of the operation and treatment. But it does not change the permit capacity of the plant. Lift station number 1, gravity main bypass and decommissioning. So this is actually connected to the upstream end of that South Shore project. But lift station number 1 at the corner of Grogan's Mill and Woodlands Parkway is the oldest lift station in the Woodlands Division, 1975. The force main, which is what the lift station pumps into and discharges into a manhole going to plant 1, just at the bottom of the screen, is heavily corroded. It goes under Woodlands Parkway. It's not in a casing, and replacing that force main would cost roughly about $2 million. What we have now as an option is to bypass lift station 1 and go to a trunk 42-inch line. This is proposed tie-in at East Shore. That's Lakefront Circle. That line was put in about 2000 or so. So now we have the option of diverting flow to that 42-inch line for rough cost about $1.5 million. So already $500,000 savings by doing it that way. And we can take the lift station out of service, decommission it, abandon it, and you're doing away with future O&M costs and rehab costs, which could be about $900,000 in itself. Water plant generators. We have 5 water plants in the Woodlands Division system. Originally, they were built to provide groundwater from wells to the woodlands. Now there's also surface water that comes into them from Lake Conroe, piped in. But 3 of our water plants have backup power primarily by these auxiliary engines that you can see at the top. Many of them are 30 to 40 years old. Also, they only provide backup power to a certain pump or well. That's all they can do. And they have to be manually operated. So some operator has to come over to the plant and turn it on and engage it, and only then will power what it needs to. So what we want to do is replace those for the water plant with new standby diesel generators like the one you can see at the bottom, which not only automatically start and operate when there's a power outage, but can be switched between different pumps or wells as the needs are demanding in the system during that power outage. So you have that flexibility. And that one's also been in the previous project plan and it's under final design. Water well rehabilitation. You see there's pretty much one project per year. This is a program, not just a single project. Even though there are projects underway right now doing this kind of work. But surface water is still a supplementary water source, and it could be disrupted. So in the Woodlands Division, we are keeping all of our groundwater wells in service to provide that as a primary source. And this is a program as identified in a master plan that we did to rehabilitate the wells as needed based upon their last rehab date. Also, how good a quality the water is, how much it can pump. And in addition to that, we have modeled, or the consultant modeled, the aquifer trends and seen what kind of decline we could see in the next 20, 30 years. If we're going to rehabilitate a well and we have the opportunity to lower the well to keep up with that potential decline, we are going to. And that's noted in the project plan description and all those pages. And the big one, y'all probably heard about a lot lately. New water reclamation facility number 1 to replace existing wastewater facility number 1. New MBR plant was identified as the choice by the stakeholder committee during phases 1 and 2. Phase 3 will be for engineering, and we have to have MUD approval for funding in order to proceed with that design work. As noted, and probably noted many times before, the current facility does not meet DCQ design criteria. We are able, though, to move forward with land acquisition while we're waiting the ability to start design. And with that, I want to hand it over to Dan Hildebrandt for a little bit more information on the schedule of this project.
I'll try to be pretty quick here because I know we've talked a lot about this project and allow Miss Betty to get your appointment. And I know Eric and Adam have some other really important agenda items to get to also. So this first slide here showing the schedule, this project's been going on for about 3 years now in planning phases. Something for a project of this size, that's a realistic time to do that. But throughout those 3 years, we've hit some critical decision points entering into additional phases. So now we have completed phase 2 and are working to move forward into the design phases, phase 3. So this is a schedule that we've presented at least since last December in some of those all MUD stakeholder meetings, to where the goal would be to try to move forward with design phases, essentially working with the MUDs to get approval on a supplemental agreement for the funding aspect moving forward by April of 2024. I will also note that we did take a draft supplemental agreement and presented those to the MUDs in January of this year. But the goal would be to move forward in April 2024 with the further design phases, which ultimately, skipping to the end of the chart here, would be a fall 2030 timeframe would be our current approximation on a completion schedule with construction and startup of that new facility. So just the big picture is these projects of this size take a significant amount of years and time to implement. So this is not something that we're going to have boots on the ground doing construction, next month or this year. So second schedule, same dots, same points, except the dates are shifted. So this is just to show if, the situation arises where the project is delayed significantly, approximately 18 months or so, to where we would commence design in December of 2025, that pushes back the construction to completion date, say summer of 2032. So there's impacts with that. And going into the next slide, I can chat about those a little bit. So the longer the construction and new facility is delayed, that puts a risk on estuary operations to be able to continue to operate that plant at the same desired level of service. I'll also note we've already put projects on hold, through this whole phase 1, phase 2 master planning. We've put major capital improvement projects on hold because we don't want to have essentially additional sunk costs in rehabilitating, improving those, if the plan was to move forward with replacement of the full facility. So what we're trying to depict on this slide, I'll start with the left column. That is a list of items that we feel would need to be addressed if construction was pushed out beyond 2030, the completion of construction, that is. So there is a number of things there that become a significant concern to be able to maintain the operation of that plant. Jumping to the second column, that is if there's even more additional delays on the project, so say a construction completion after 2033, we would be looking to address those bullet points in the second column on the right, in addition to the ones on the left. So this is a presentation we've already presented to the audit committee. We presented this to the trustees and are going through the MUDs this week. So one thing that has been brought to our attention is, can you try to quantify the costs associated with all these items to see what would be an impact on delaying this project? And something else to consider, this is just equipment and assets at the plant. There's also probably going to be an impact on the actual construction of the new facility because you're constantly going to be fighting inflation as you push the project out further. So this is something we've heard the questions. We want to be able to work with all of y'all to be able to provide responses and the information you need to make some key decisions coming up here. So at this time, we are working with our consultant to develop what would be an approach and a level of effort for a consultant to develop a cost estimate with any sort of confidence on these items to come back and present to you. So what would have to happen, though, is that additional costs on a consultant is outside the current scope, outside our current budget, to where in standard practice, that request would go back to the Board of Trustees for approval of that additional expenditure before we move forward with trying to develop with the consultant detailed cost estimates for that. So that's something I just wanted to point out, kind of looking where we're at on schedule, impacts of any sort of delays on the project. I do want to pass it back to Aaron. He's got like 2 more slides to go through the
Just a summary,
of the project plan.
So this slide shows you for those projects that I've went over, ongoing or about to start. The funding sources that we're utilizing that we've already got ongoing or we do have bond funds on hand. So the R&R fund projects you can see at the top, and the costs that we'll have for FY25 and the future and beyond that. And then also we have bond funds that we have on hand that were from a 2017 bond that we're able to utilize for those 3 projects at the bottom for about $21 million. So that's good to have. As far as new bonds that are needed for the new water reclamation facility, for that conveyance optimization project, for future gravity main rehabs, and then on the water side, the water line replacements, the new ground storage tank to replace the existing one, and a new water well, you're looking at roughly $600 million. worth of new bonds that will need at some point in the future. So in grand total, the summary of the project, 10-year project plan for R&R funded projects, we're looking at about $87 million. Again, for this 2017 bonds that we already have in place, $21 million. And for those projects that will need new bonds that are non-funded currently, almost $600 million for a total 10-year program of a little over $700 million. With that, I'll open up to any questions for myself or Dan, if more like our reclamation.
And in the stakeholders meeting, were these items that needed to be constructed in 2030 or in addition to that, what needed to be constructed in 2033? Were there broad based rough estimates provided to the stakeholders for each one of these line items?
So I would say no, not for each individual line item. You know, during some of that phase one analysis, some of the major capital improvement projects. So for example, I think it's in the second column there, there's one for aeration basins and blower replacement. That was a big project. What was like $18 million, you know, that we put on hold to go through that strategic planning. A number of the other items shown in both columns are more down kind of on the pump, motor, mechanical side of things, to where that wouldn't have been captured in a big 10-year project plan to say would have been needed on reoccurring maintenance, replacement, rehab, repairs through probably more of an O&M budget. But we did not get to that individual equipment level in phase one, but we did capture some of those larger items.
Anyway, when we started talking about getting rid of the 5 lift stations and using the gravity, did we talk about the cost savings of that, or how much it would cost if we had to replace the lift station?
On the conveyance side, and
Yeah.
that's, there was an Aaron showed to where that was an alternative that we saw very advantageous across, regardless of what we were doing at the wastewater plant. To where, you know, it was approximately over lifespan, you know, we were looking at that 50-year planning horizon, you know, tens of millions of dollars in savings going to the gravity conveyance versus the lift station.
That's just one I can remember. I thought we did that individual things as the meetings went on.
Yep. That was kind of a side benefit coming out of that whole planning that I don't think any of us really.
The purpose of my question, and you mentioned that you'd have to understandably retain a consultant to go through and kind of cost estimate these needed improvements. And it just seems to me that we're going to be adding both cost and delay in doing that, which will just gum up the whole works of anything going forward. Is there a way to get as they like to say, a 35,000-foot view of? That's why I was hoping that something had been presented earlier, that you could just say, well, here's what the numbers were 2 years ago, and add whatever factor of inflation, cost increases, et cetera, that you care to. You know, we have a suggestion, but I'm sure that it won't satisfy everybody. Everybody's going to look at it differently. But you say there's no such baseline?
For every single one of these things are on the list. That's what you're saying. That isn't a comprehensive list of those have not been done.
Well, I think that this is some additional things that might be needed by further delay. But I think what you're saying is, in the stakeholder process, there was a point in time where there was some comparisons made between an alternative that Band-Aids continues to Band-Aid things versus the route that was eventually chosen, or the other versions that were contemplated at the time.
That renewal. and
I think
replacement.
you're asking,
That's the
we
question.
know what the new number is of this, of the plant going the direction that we're
Right.
at. You're asking for what was that number back then, not to update it, but what was it when it was being contemplated a couple of years ago? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, precisely. Is there a way to resurrect that, Dan?
We would be getting back with our consultant, Priest and Nichols, and see what level they went to during that phase one planning, to be able to help us develop what it would be today.
I just see it taken,
No, again, he's not asking for what it would be today. He's asking for what it was then.
what it was then, and then let people put their own factor on there as to what they believe has happened in 2 years. You can certainly make a recommendation from a
Sure.
general perspective, but not getting down into the nuts, bolts, nitty and gritty.
I think we're gonna have to take a little time to go back, coordinate with the Freeze to see what they do.
I think a little time is good, but I think that a full-blown engineering evaluation and assessment would be quite a substantial project, would be my guess.
Be about 6 months.
6
Mhm.
months.
Mhm.
That's after they're under contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that a number of the other MUDs and a number of the trustees that represent those MUDs, they'd like that impact without it necessarily being 100%, because how can you can't, I've talked to people that are doing construction estimating, and they can't hardly estimate week to week. So, I mean, to try and yeah, to try and do this with a retained consultant, stretching it out 6, 8, 9 months.
We did talk about it. I mean, but we talked about it in terms of isolated items, and chlorine is another brainstorm I just had that had gone up
Could you drop that, please?
600%. And so there were
Maureen,
little
would you
small
put the-
things like that,
Thank you. The other thing that I wanted to talk about,
A number of mud directors are retired and I'll say somewhat removed from the business world and the cost that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. And, but they're not seeing, not recognizing that labor costs have escalated quite a bit, material costs have escalated quite a bit. Contractors have gotten, I guess, a little more profit-minded, so to speak, over the last couple of years. And skilled labor, again, is another major issue. And so we're seeing costs for sewer plants, whether it's new or rehabilitated in place, being about the same price. It's upwards of $35 a gallon when less than 10 years ago, it was 12 to 15.
Mhm.
And so significant cost. But if you're okay with the 100,000 foot level, we can get numbers, but there's gonna be a lot of disclaimers to it. And then
I personally think it would be beneficial. I don't know. What do y'all think? I mean, as opposed to,
Talking about specifically just the wastewater treatment plant impact. We're not talking about the AC pipe replacement. So we're only
it's
focused
not
on that.
just this one.
Right. 'Cause I thought-
Reclamation facility number 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing that I wanted
I may say so.
yes, ma'am.
I think that just understanding general principles of economics, to spend all that time to tell you what this is going to cost because we're postponing it. Well, first, there's a cost to that. And every other board that I've served on, we have to maintain schools, for example. It's gone up, and so I think it's a given. It's going to be a lot more expensive just based on the things that Ed just said. That's just my thoughts. And, coming from a place where nobody did anything, that scares me to drag it out. It was going to be 6 million. In another 6 months, it could be 12 million. That's just
pretty
wanted to
staggering.
get
number
that-
That's on there.
wanted to
$750
get that in
million.
Mhm.
It's stunning. On page 21 of our packets, this is a line that's been talked about, the town center water line renewal, of which we're a participant along with Metro MUD 6 and MUD 36, 21?
Okay.
We've so far, if, correct me, Chris, if I'm reading this incorrectly, you've invoiced $845,000 and the contracted amount is $1,046,000 and we're at 97% complete. You're waiting on mets and bounds and easements to be finalized. So you're going to expend the 1.46. Okay. So what happens, I noticed that this project was not included in the upcoming round of projects to be addressed.
Immediate year, but it is still in the project plan. If you look at your project plan binder under the summary sheets, we have it under the R&R section under that design that you just referred to, and also easement acquisition. However, the construction portion of it, it's on the second sheet under the bond funded area. So you'll see that it is.
I'm lost here. Could you?
Yeah. I'll show you. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. Page 4 and 5. So page 4, you can see there's two projects at the very top. The first one is the design related one. So we're expecting in 25 to spend another remaining $20,000 worth of what you just referred to on this. The other project that's R&R funded is the easement acquisition itself. Remember the excess funds, that was another thing in there. But as far as the construction is concerned, if you go to page 5, you will see under new bond funded projects, let's see, I'm sorry. It's, new water. Okay, yeah, the heading's at the bottom. But you can see here is the first one, page 54, or it's what it's referring to. It's that top town center water line replacement starting in FY 26 and then going into 27. So you can see it's that $17 million project right there.
Bob, a quick answer to the question
Yes.
is BUDs have not authorized the supplemental agreements to allow us to sell bonds to pay to build that, to construct that water line.
Right.
What would it take to how would we move that forward?
Get supplemental agreements to allow us to sell debt. Approved.
And that would be starting at the MUD level?
Yes.
Would it just be the MUD's reference here, 63660 in Metro?
Project plan still, but we don't have the funds to build it.
Okay, we have two very experienced consulting engineers that we have the benefit of their experience. What happens to a set of plans which the citizens have paid $1,050,000 for, and you put them on the shelf for a year and a half?
Have to be updated.
Yeah, usually approvals are good for a year, and then after a year, you need to go back to that municipality see and ask for a refresh approval to extend the approval. If there's, in the meantime, some regulation or design standard that's changed, then you'd have to address that before they approve it.
Or if there's been a major change along the route that you need to add into the plans.
I think a risk is other utilities coming in that would impact.
Right.
Yeah, that's the problem here is a lot of the lines in the woodlands are not in dedicated easements. And that causes some problem with your ability, your exclusivity of being in that particular gap, and everybody else can be there. And so more time goes on. We always joked it's like a spaghetti bowl of lines, other lines in that area, which can be problematic.
This line scares me. And isn't this the one that has a capacity issue? Don't you need an enlargement?
Still 6 months.
That's not this one. It's part of the project. That needs to go from 12 to 16 or something like that. I just think there's an awful lot of taxable real estate that's put in jeopardy without moving forward on this line. And I don't know how to break it free. And I don't know what we can do independently. maybe you don't share my opinion, which is fine. But I just see that this could become a real,
$10,000 difference between this page and this one, because it has on page 4, the town center water line replacement, the total goes to 1,036,000, and here it's 1,046,000 on in our page 21 in our packets. And maybe I'm just not following why that's
Total,
different.
let's see, the contract amount of that and
I see where
the
you're-
packet.
yeah, it says, well, you have the two
It's
together.
not-
You have the two together, right?
I don't.
Yeah, the 20,000 and to the 1,027,000, and you come up with 1,047,000.
We're having
Is that what happened?
I don't know what happened.
We'll research it.
There's so many numbers, they're starting to blur.
That's what I think. Potentially, if you had those two together, you come up with 1,047,000.
Oh, these two?
I think that's it. They're
Yeah,
both-
that would be that.
because that'd be the replacement and the easements.
No, that's for 2025.
That's 2025.
Right. So
Okay.
we'll look into that. Good. Thank you for letting us know about that.
Anyhow, I don't know what else I can say. You've answered the question. It just needs funding,
Just the money.
just tag it on to the 700 million.
That's part of the 700.
Oh, it is. Good. Thank you. That's comforting. Thank you, Mr. Schindelwolf. Appreciate your presentation. Mrs. Doherty had to adjourn at 12:50. Okay. Okay, after that, where are we? We are at funding alternatives, the fun topic, very appropriately placed in the agenda.
So how on earth
Thank you.
are we gonna fund this? Is your question?
There's a lottery tonight.
Yeah,
It would cover it.
It would cover it. I mean, actually it would.
Governor, states and the feds.
Well, that's true. Well, that's pre-tax.
Half. I thought, didn't Ronald Reagan say it was 15%? Oh, that's right. Things have changed since then.
Hmm.
We're now up to
A little
50.
bit. So as there's been a number of discussions over the last couple of months about these projects, funding for the projects, et cetera, we've been working behind the scenes to identify some different funding options that the MUDs might look at as we continue down this path of identifying how to fund some things. Brian, Adam, myself, and our folks have been working behind the scenes to put together some of these options. What you have before you is a summary of options with some pro cons, some numbers in here. And then also there's a larger fold out that you have that actually coincides with option 2. What I wanted to do is just briefly summarize each of the options. Obviously no decisions to be made today, but just wanted to kind of throw this information out so that folks could kind of digest and get an understanding. Option number 1 would be to do SRA would sell bond issues and then identify the wholesale rate necessary to create enough revenue to cover that debt. That wholesale rate would be passed through as you do today on your water bill. As you can see, and it would vary a little bit per MUD, but and there's probably some fine tuning there, but roughly it's about $250 at the end of this process in 10 years. That's about what the water sewer bill would be. Option 2 would be rollback tax election. That's where you would go back to the voters and ask for approval to modify your current M&O tax rate from wherever it is now up to that certain amount. That's identified in the handout. And as you can see, there's essentially first case or throughout the financing of the bonds. you can see kind of where the high mark is for month 60. And yours is about $862 annually. Keep in mind, option one, that number was monthly, but annually about 862 would be the resultant effect to the consumer. So you divide that by 12 and you get your monthly. What is that?
What
65
are you
cents.
saying the tax rate would have to rise to 0.179?
No, that's
No, in addition to where you're at.
where we are. Is that,
In addition to your current tax bill, the tax bill to the average customer would increase by that amount.
Current rate is 14.6038,
Okay,
so you'd have to add the almost 18 cents to that. And that is to fund the full 10-year CIP, the 613 million.
there it is up there. 23, there's the current tax rates right there.
That's like $72.
there it is. I see.
$72 on a tax side, $72 roughly a month. Now, the first one is in your monthly water bill. Option two would be in your tax bill. So it'd be a little bit different way of looking at it. Option number three includes actually more of a fee structure going back in the water bill side, identifying a fee that you could put in, not based on water usage. And we kind of just drew a line in the sand and said $100, $200 for residential and commercial respectively. And you can see what that generates per annual across all of the MUDs, about 43 million in revenue. If you multiply that by 10 years, you don't quite get to the amount. So you either tweak it or you might look at a combination of some of these options, or you could ramp that up. One of the things to think about, I think that is a con on the water bill side, is that lifeline rate. The individual that's on fixed income that doesn't use much water, you put in $100 fee or $250 water bill, and that could be, problematic for some, maybe not for all, obviously, but it's just something to think about. And the last option, which we really didn't pursue too much, which is essentially the MUDs going out to the voters to get bond authorization to do your own bond issues. In option two, the estimate was that would be sold in roughly 8 bond issues that SGRA would sell. If that were the same number, then you can imagine there's 80 bond issues across all the MUDs, which would be overwhelming, to say the least, inefficient, very expensive. So we didn't put a whole lot of stock in that one because it's the cons are so great in that one. It just doesn't make sense. That is, however, how most of the Woodlands was developed in the early days, is you sold your own bonds. But at this point, if that was all, not everybody was doing it at the same time,
Sure.
as the Woodlands developed over time. But that's probably not the best route at this point. So we saved us a little bit of time and not overdeveloping that option. So those are the 4 options that we developed. There could be combinations of these. There's, different ways to look at each of these. But I wanted to give you some information so that you could digest it. And certainly if you think of any different pros or cons or questions that you might have, send them to us and we'll be happy to look over them.
If I could just ask a couple of questions on option number 2. There was some discussion at this, not only at the TWA conference that I was at. Everybody is just being overwhelmed with all of the agencies across the state with increased costs and how to fund them. We're not unique. But isn't it Is it possible, depending upon how you do your federal income tax, that some of the cost of the bond that's onto your property tax rate could be deducted from your federal tax?
Currently up to $10,000
Okay. So that's, I think, another pro.
total.
Now, I don't know how you have to do your income tax. I mean,
If
they've
you're-
standardized the
Didn't
deduction is, yeah,
Not everyone itemizes.
I guess it might be,
With the
Even-
even deduction being so high right now as it's been in the last few
Yeah.
years.
it wasn't
Like that, but
feasible for my.
that may not stay there.
No, because it may go away in 25.
Right.
Correct. A lot of those are going to expire, so.
I can't remember what all the provisions are that are going to expire if they're not renewed, but there were a number of them.
Yeah.
They had to do the hocus pocus to get it to pass on a
Yeah.
majority vote without super majority.
Yeah, and on the tax side, there's some buffers for, you have over 65 exemptions. There's some, benefits where some of those lifeline type individuals are already protected in some form because of the exemptions that you have.
Has there been any discussion in the bond world to extend the length of bonding? I'd heard some rumors that it's currently 30 years, isn't it?
That's what these are structured at.
But is there a potential that, I don't know how this would occur, you would know. I mean, is it legislation? What would it take to make a 40-year bond?
I think ideally you could do it. It's just at the mercy of the market and what that would cost you.
Yeah, I mean, part of it's federal income tax requirements. I'm thinking from the BUD perspective, it's the same federal income tax requirements that the authority is subject to. It's tied to the useful life of the asset, number one. And so you'd have to look at the different assets included in the bond issue and what the useful life is. And
That's in the SJRA, what's the asset management.
Yeah.
That 30 years, right? For like a treatment plant, wasn't it currently a 30-year? I believe that's what I read when I reviewed that. Is it 50? Oh, okay.
Facility, and that's why we look at 50-year planning horizon during the strategic planning. It's kind of tied to that expected life of the primary asset.
And lastly, I was talking to one of the other agencies down in Harris County, and they were contemplating a rollback election too. And they correct me if this is because this was anecdotal, at a conference. If you go with option 2, that some of these other options, the current residents carry pretty much the entire load, right? Whereas this spreads it out so that when the people who will be departing for one reason or another in the next 10 or 15 years and people come in, then they're on the train to take the bonds and pay them off as it goes through the life of the project.
That's ideally the reason you sell bonds is
Yeah.
the people that are living there at the time will pay their fair share. Now this, based on SFDUEs, that's how we got the pro rata share, but it's all value based. So the commercial properties will end up paying more because everything I'm showing here is based on an average homestead. You'll have homes that are valued more than that, homes that are valued less than that. And the commercial properties obviously don't fall into that category.
Mhm.
And so everything is value based on the tax rate increase. So the commercial properties will be skewed to pay a higher amount because their value is
Mhm.
more highly taxed.
But for this study, this is more than satisfactory, right?
Right.
Yeah. What we're doing. Any other questions? Okay,
When do we
wanna-
decide,
don't want to beat this
do
to
we
death.
decide on any options when?
Not today. I think this was to give all the information, give all the boards information about the different options as we continue to discuss what the River Authority is requesting in terms of funding, but felt that it was important for the boards to have the menu of options for how you would pay for it, because you look at $700 million, you go, that's a huge number, because it is. How in the world are we gonna pay for that? Well, here's 4 different options that you could look at for how your constituents could pay for that, that infrastructure.
And I was getting a lot of questions from directors on, well, what does that equal to the average homeowner? And that was part of also the reason was trying to take the financing of all those projects or that number and translate it to a monthly, bill or an impact to the consumer. So it was another reason to put this together. So folks would get an idea of what does 700 mean? What does that mean? And what does that look like to me, the consumer? So. And I didn't mention it on option 2, if that's the route that ends up, we wouldn't be able to make that determination or hold a bond election or a rollback tax election until November of 25, most likely.
Would that impact the funding of the potential funding of the new water reclamation facility design? So the design would be delayed theoretically by a year?
Right now, you have a request on the table from SGRA to consider that piece of it to go forward with, will allow them to go forward with a bond election to get the engineering moving forward. Now, that's a much, what did I say?
On the election.
Excuse me. Concept.
When, where is that now? Is that, what will it take to move that forward?
We need supplemental agreements to allow us to do debt financing.
And how do we do that?
You have a draft of a supplemental agreement in front of you. You've had it since February, January, since January.
Not in front of you right now, but
Oh,
it's been presented to you.
You all have, all of the directors have received it in January. There are some blanks in there because we still some things to fill into the draft agreement. But we need the MUDs to approve that so we could move forward with the $40 million for preliminary engineering.
what did you call, what was the term that you called?
Supplemental agreement.
Supplemental agreement.
It's the document that my understanding was used in 2017 for some of the MUDs that sold, or for all the MUDs that sold bonds at that time.
But it does anticipate additional bond issues for the plan itself, and there's representations in there that the MUDs understand that the plan is necessary, et cetera. So we've had, some additional discussion by some of the districts about the plan, as y'all know. And so we wanted to make sure we went through that whole process before we, brought that agreement to the boards for a vote.
Surprised there isn't more action. There isn't more momentum or importance being given to it. Am I missing something? Never mind. Not important. Doesn't require any answer. Any questions, further discussions, items? Nothing? Okay. Donna, you good?
Well, I'm just wondering if the funding might change because if the AC pipes get delayed due to the testing, that the integrity of the pipes are better than we thought they were going to be. Would that change what the funding needs are going to be?
It might defer when some of the water line projects are accomplished. That should not impact the wastewater plant.
No, not the wastewater. I'm just talking about the AC pipe replacements.
We need 2 different supplemental agreements, one for water, one for sewer, or do it all at once.
Well, right now, this incremental one is just for the engineering.
You're right.
But then when we get to, that would depend on how the river gets set up in tranches. If you did a tranche for, I would assume you do one for water, one for sewer, but that would be something we ought to decide on internally. I thought there were multiple tranches for that.
It was anticipated as one.
Yeah.
So that we didn't have a bunch of money sitting in an account
Right.
unnecessarily.
Yeah, ultimately from a financing option, I think they would probably sell water and wastewater together. Because that's water going forward right now, the rates are.
Yeah.
Negligible.
But that could be carved out, to your point. I mean, that's a good point. Till you get the study done, that's just now being brought to the River Authority Board for approval, because it was approved by the trustees last week. Until you get the results of that, then the boards aren't gonna, and the River Authority, I think at this point, aren't gonna be willing to move forward with the AC water line replacement. So however long that takes, and depending what the answer is, I think we could certainly carve that out.
Right. Well, it sounds like it's only going to be a year if it said 2025. I can't remember the month
Yeah.
from the presentation.
Summer.
Summer? Okay, so that's almost only a year. We're already into spring.
Yeah. That can be carved out, I think.
I would say the first priority is the wastewater plant.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And so we would like to be able to move forward with the wastewater plant engineering as soon as possible, as soon as we know that the MUDs are comfortable with the supplemental agreement and what's being discussed
Mhm.
and the amount of money being discussed. Because there is, I can say it, there is still confusion on what's being asked. And we're trying to do the best we can to resolve that confusion.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we move to agenda item 13, receive update regarding the status of the Bear Branch, Panther Branch and Research Forest Drive drainage improvement projects. Mr. Hildebrand, oh, that's Mr.
We've received the draft engineering report and we've asked the consultant for an opinion of cost on the project. So they are working on that now. And once we have that, then we'll be able to come and brief Eric a little more and also the MUDs that are involved in the project. We're a couple of months, probably 2 months out from being able to do it.
June. June presentation, potentially. Thank you. Agenda item 18, receive the attorney's report. Brian Yates. Very good. Agenda item 15, consider an act upon updated drought contingency plan and water conservation policy.
Until next month, we're still working with the consultant and the River Authority to make sure that it's updated and they're harmonized with what the River Authority is doing. So they're due by May 1st, so we're going to need to take action next month on it.
Very good, thank you. Agenda item 16, consider adoption of resolution concerning developed status for the 2024 tax year, pages 36 through 42 of our.
So we do have that in the packet. The district will remain a developed district for 2024. Get the documentation back from LJ Cole is here to answer any questions you may have, but you remain a developed district for 24, which means you're subject to the 3.5% rollback rate and the automatic election if you exceed that. And that will be the rate that you levy in September or so of this year. Give me the motion to approve that resolution.
We do need a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I move.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director McAleer and a second by Director Walker. Further discussion on this matter? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Okay. Thank you. Receive and act on the general manager's report. Mr. Peterson, please.
Just wanted to give a couple updates. Myself and a couple of different directors from the MUDs attended the Gulf Coast Water Conservation Symposium a few weeks ago. So it's very informational, good day of learning. I attended the George's Coffee Club yesterday morning and presented Ed and I presented, and Aubrey for that matter, presented to the group on kind of what the responsibilities are of the Woodlands Water Agency, the MUDs, SGRA. We kind of went through all that. We talked a little bit about this infrastructure, all of this infrastructure, these projects, and what's facing us in the future. So it went well. I think it was well received. So I'll probably be doing that a lot more over the next year or so. But that went well. I wanted to congratulate John and the team and celebrate an award that WWA has been honored with. The AWWA and Water Environment Association of Texas, WEAT, is the short has honored WWA with the Watermark Award for Communications Excellence. We applied last year and won for our strategic communication plan efforts that were developed and implemented last year in 2023. So that award will be honored to us at the April 11th conference. So with that,
Congratulations.
Yeah, kudos to the PEC, putting together a good plan and produce some good results. That was recognized, so good job PEC and staff too. It's very much a team effort, what we do with communications. Page 50, you have your communications report. I'm just gonna hit on a few statistics for you today, starting off with your annual update that you provided to your residents. So you did a digital and a print format with that. Both of those hit about 70% of your customers. So it's nice that you do both. You get that overlap. It was effective. Cost you about $1,300. And I think the ROI was significant. Since those reports went out, we've seen almost a tripling, 2.5 times increase in visitation to your webpage. So folks were opening those emails, they were looking at the social media, they were reading those bill stuffers and then going to your webpage to get more information. So good job. Water Smart, some encouraging statistics there. You know, that's probably our number one. It is our number one customer support tool. In the last 3 months, we more than doubled, well, almost doubled our monthly rate of registration. So last year we were registering on average 170 customers, new customers a month. That has bumped up to 333 a month since the beginning of the year. The primary driver behind that is folks can now auto pay through WaterSmart. So we've got a one-stop shop going there. It's driving folks to WaterSmart, and you know, ideally they're seeing all the other amazing tools at their disposal there. So we're excited about those numbers rising. Some examples of current marketing materials that are out there on the next 2 pages, and then on page 52, we got our outreach calendar. So spring is here, and we're increasing our in-person activities. Eric just mentioned one. We've got a couple more coming up in April. And as always, you are welcome, encouraged to attend those for a minute or the whole duration if you like to talk with folks with us while we're out there. Any questions? All right, thank you.
And thank you, John. Dale, Don, was pretty good. Thank you very much, John. Good job. Continue to deliver for us and for the resident customers. Yeah. Right. Agenda item 18, receive the Woodlands Water Trustees Report by Eric Peterson, pages 48 and 49 in our meeting packet.
Most of what we've covered so far in the agenda was pretty much was the discussion in the trustee meeting. We did hear the 10-year project plan. What else? We went into a little bit more detail on the Public Education Committee meeting, and that was The strategic plan that was developed by the consultant is nearing completion. And there was a good bit of discussion in the PEC meeting on developing a logo for the campaign itself, kind of a infrastructure renewal kind of logo that would coincide with the campaign. And so there was a good bit of discussion on that and some tweaking that's going to be done by the consultant. And so we should see that coming out here soon. I think we've covered everything else.
The one ad that I had, Eric, was that from the Audit and Finance Committee. They also delivered a committee recommendation on the disbursement of the excess funds, the distribution. Questions? Dale, Donna? Yes, sir.
I apologize. I missed an item. In the meeting this morning with Mud One, it came up that there was desire to insert a third page stuffer in this month's water bill, this coming months, regarding the elections. And it would be a simple one-sided piece, very basic information on when the election is, and where to get more information. And then also a candidate list noting the incumbents. If this is something you'd like to do, we can make that happen. We'll go out the next bill. With your district, you're looking at about $450 to do that.
In our mud, we have no incumbents running. So
That is correct.
at all, there's just
Then
four
just
people,
pick the candidates.
just four candidates then.
I think that's good information.
Yeah. Do we need a motion or anything or just a
Correction.
correction? Yeah,
Nice to put that in our.
I think it-
mud.
I think
Yeah, really, yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
John. Okay, we're getting there, guys. Do we need to we do not, closed session, okay. For matters for future agenda. I'd like to revisit the supplemental agreement information next month, if you would be so kind, please. Anything else, Dale? Donna? Hearing none, we can adjourn this meeting. Thank you.